Anyway, so welcome to the session, everyone. My name is Lucy, so I'm just going to be sitting here while the wonderful Milbre Burch talks to you about women rewriting history. So Milbre is a renowned storyteller, performer, and educator. And I'm very excited to listen to what we are going to hear about, as I'm sure all of you are as well. So I will hand it over to Milbre.
Thank you. I was intrigued that it said women rewriting history. I believe that may be someone else's title, although as a woman and an artist, I think anytime we speak, we're rewriting history. So I'll take the compliment. The name of the presentation is Reconnecting the Dots, Virtual and Digital Storytelling as Pathways to Social Justice and Community Education. And I want to just say before I go to my screen share that I'm going to use a PowerPoint to move us along. I'm going to go to 3 short digital stories. I'm going to offer some prompts that I hope you have some responses to, either by raising your hand or by putting something in the chat, because my intention is for you to, as an earlier speaker said, adapt and localize anything that I have done that may be of interest to you working in your own home communities. So just to start, I have a long ago background in filmmaking, but I've spent the last 40 plus years as a performance storyteller, chiefly in live performance until the pandemic when, like so many of my comrades, we had to pivot to a virtual teaching and performing platform. I started doing digital storytelling when I heard Joe Lambert speak at the National Storytelling Conference 2013 and went to study with him for the first time in 2014. It was a sort of a welcome home in some ways. So I'm going to share my screen now. Just click screen share, clicking share sound and optimize for video, and starting with the PowerPoint. So, and let's see if we can make this an actual slideshow so you don't have to look at what's coming up before it comes. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the presentation? Huzzah, huzzah, thank you. Well, we're gonna move past this because we done said it already. I wanna say some definitions here. As a digital storyteller, I use that expression to describe mediated short, 3 to 4 minute long personal stories, sometimes in poetic narrative form. That's how I was taught at Story Center in the Bay Area. As a touring and teaching artist who pivoted to virtual realm, I use virtual storytelling to describe online performances that are live streamed or in some cases recorded for on-demand watching after the fact. There may be others who use these terms interchangeably, but that's how I use them for this presentation. I want to showcase 3 digital and/or virtual story projects. The first is a digital story made at the Story Center in 2019. The other 2 are excerpts or teasers from longer digital performances, virtual performances. So I'm hoping to model for you my own use of digital and virtual storytelling in the name of social justice and community education. And I'm going to start by sharing this first 4-minute video called Home. You may be interested to know that it was made during a stories scene workshop at the Story Center, in which you actually put the visuals together without having a narrative script, and then write the script to go along with the images that you've chosen. So for me, that was very interesting. As a storyteller and a writer, I often do narrative first, but I loved that approach. First and foremost, making this video was, for me, grief work, because I was living in America in 2019 with a president who seemed to be dead set on dividing the country that I live in. And grief, of course, is very enervating, and if you can't move grief out of your body, it stays with you. I was also moved by an interaction with a friend who clearly had a lacerated heart in response to the same kind of social issues that were afoot during both the pandemic that was coming up and just the racial reckoning and the difficulty of living under the particular president's administration. It did have a second life. I sent it to friends after I made it, but it had a second life. A storyteller, Heather Forrest, told me about the Scheherazade Project, which was a national virtual gathering of women's voices to raise awareness around issues embedded in the 2020 upcoming presidential election. And this was 101 nights from July 25th to November 2nd, streaming stories that weren't necessarily political in nature, but stories to delight, entertain, and enlighten. They used two of my pieces, and this is one. So I'm gonna now make the screen smaller so I can get to the first video I want to share with you, and I will make it big in just a mo. Battered by the sneering rhetoric of leaders, I fear we'll soon see even the angels crucified. My spirit rises up fierce with prayer, incensed by the silencing of women. The liar's heated words are meant to scold us till we stop reaching out, and the ties between us begin to unravel. We'll sit speechless at the table when beloved friends show us their lacerated hearts and wonder what we should have said. We've lost the skill to comfort even ourselves. So what will we tell our daughters? Will we caution them to be patient, even if the boys aren't kind? Why should they believe us when we urge them to own their power? They have seen for themselves that every fragile thing on earth can be used to feed fiery speech against the other, the smoke of burning flesh obscuring the deception. My children tell me that I can't hold the world's pain inside my body, reminding me that Guan Yin was broken by the endless cries of the world and the burden of all its need.
Milbre?
Human ears were not enough to take in all the weeping. Yes. I'm sorry?
You can't see the visuals.
Oh my goodness. Has this been the case the whole time?
Yes, sorry, I don't think you heard me before, and then I popped it into the chat there. But I think it's maybe if you're sharing specifically your PowerPoint screen, if you share your screen generally, then that should help.
So her head split apart.
Okay, hold on. I will start again, and I will, because when I practiced this yesterday, I was able to do that. So,
yeah.
Hang on.
Battered by the...
If you go to share screen and just share your screen in general.
Can you see now a PowerPoint? It's not the PowerPoint, but something else?
It's just loading. I will let you know.
Okay, I'm so sorry, folks.
Oh, no. Don't worry. We'll pretend that didn't happen.
Tell you what, I will stop the share.
Yes, and then start again.
And start again. Great. Thank you for the warning. So sorry about that.
Oh, don't worry.
All right, let's try again here. Can you see it now? Thumb up or down?
The sneering rhetoric of leaders. Battered by the sneering rhetoric of leaders, I fear we'll soon see even the angels crucified. My spirit rises up fierce with prayer, incensed by the silencing of women. The liar's heated words are meant to scald us till we stop reaching out, and the ties between us begin to unravel. We'll sit speechless at the table when beloved friends show us their lacerated hearts and wonder what we should have said. We've lost the skill to comfort even ourselves. So what will we tell our daughters? Will we caution them to be patient, even if the boys aren't kind? Why should they believe us when we urge them to own their power? They have seen for themselves that every fragile thing on earth can be used to feed fiery speech against the other, the smoke of burning flesh obscuring the deception. My children tell me that I can't hold the world's pain inside my body, reminding me that Guan Yin was broken by the endless cries of the world and the burden of all its need. Her human ears were not enough to take in all the weeping, so her head split apart, and on her neck grew a tower of heads, each one supported by the other. Her 2 arms dropped with the weight of all she stooped to carry, till she sprouted 1,000 more to cradle even the least of us. Holding on to her image, I'll step back on the long road to justice. I'll crumble the half a bannock my mother gave me, rationing it piece by piece among my fellow travelers. I'll offer too the blessings she laid upon me, still potent. Those of us who can must move on together, past the fire of our own doubting hearts, past the fear that we aren't worthy, till we reach the haven of our shared humanity and learn to call it home once more.
So I'm going to go ahead and speak over the credits, which I want to have in front of you because they are naming the artwork that you saw and where it can be seen. But I am interested in your responses about using art to address divisive speech and the effectiveness for the listener, whether in fact it's effective for the listener. Happy to have you put some things in the chat. In a moment, I'm going to bring the PowerPoint back. And if, I'm assuming you can't see that I've pulled the PowerPoint up so that I can read for myself. So digital stories have the opportunity to reach an audience that you might not otherwise have a chance to reach. So if you create work using art to address social justice issues, what are some of the places in the community that might be conduits for screenings to address with others the statements that you have made? What are the places in your community that these stories might be shared? Any thoughts you want to share either in the chat or by letting us know you have something that you want to say to us? And then I'll ask the last question on hand. And for this particular piece, and knowing that we lost a little time by my having to rerun it, we'll move on to the next thing. So I'm going to share the screen again and go back to the PowerPoint for a mo. Here we are. Can you see it? Yes?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, great. So again, I'm in each of the cases of the case studies that I'm presenting, I either had a collaborative partner in the case of Story Scenes workshop leader at the Story Center, or in some cases, the folks who worked with me to bring a particular story to a virtual audience. Again, are there local, regional, national digital platforms that exist already, like the Scheherazade Project, which I did not know about until someone turned me on to it, in your community or abroad that your story work could contribute to? I hope you'll put some ideas in the chat and we'll move on. This next piece that I want to discuss is an example of going from polemic to portrait. The piece in question is called Notes from a Pandemic Pothole. And this was a piece that I wrote specifically for the virtual Remembrance and Renewal Storytelling Festival that I co-curated as part of the Process series at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. That's where I'm a research collaborator, though I am chiefly an independent scholar artist, but I do have colleagues who work with me on various things at UNC here in Chapel Hill. I will say that I probably wrote 25 versions of this particular piece, which was written in response to a request by the artistic director of the Process series to create a piece that took the pandemic into its embrace. And Perhaps like some of you, perhaps not, I was very lucky that I had a roof over my head. I was able to bring groceries into my house. I had money in the bank. Uh, all I had to do was stay safe and pray that my children who live in LA and in London were also staying safe. So I wrote this piece and I developed it with about 15 different conversation partners, fellow storytellers, who gave me feedback and kept telling me, well, Milbre, right now it's an essay. And finally, someone who knows my work very well said, why don't you make this into a character monologue, which is one of the forms that story performance takes in my work because of my training. And when I opened the door to the idea of a character monologue, I found waiting behind it Mavis Troy. So she is the speaker in the excerpt that you're going to hear shortly. An older, conservative, working class white woman from the rural South. My background is the South. And she let me address things very directly that had inflamed me during the pandemic, but because of my class, my education, my politics, my privilege, they didn't necessarily step into my life and impact my life, but they did impact lives of people I knew and loved, and I found I had something to say about it. I am particularly indebted to the open hearts and critical ears of 6 friends who are Black, Indigenous people of color. They listened to multiple drafts of this thing and offered feedback. And their responses helped me add nuance to the narrative, in which Mavis Troy invokes and evokes her friend Lucille Dillard. Their sometimes fractious relationship is the emotional center of this particular piece. They were thrown together in high school when the high school was integrated, and then have known each other for the 50 years hence. Lucille has spent much of that time trying to coach Mavis to open her eyes to the difference between a white woman's life and a Black woman's life. In the course of the full script, which is about 30 minutes long in performance at present, which has been published in Storytelling Self-Society, Mavis acknowledges the burden that Lucille carries as her mentor in all things woke when she reveals that her friend says, sometimes it's exhausting trying to teach me how to do right. But Lucille's tutelage is not lost on her, because Mavis begins and ends her monologue saying, Lucille is the person whose voice needs to be heard. And as a white woman who is an ally to the Black Lives Matter movement, that's perhaps my most important message. So now I'm going to close this share and I'm going to move to a different screen and play this 5-minute excerpt from Pandemic Pothole. Let's see if we can get it going. Can you see it? Yes? No?
Yes, ma'am. Restaurants is fickle business. It's a miracle we still got this place. Me and Lucille. We closed just as soon as they told us to last spring. Governor said we could open up again in a month's time, but our mayor said, no, that wasn't safe. So Scotty and Lucille and I talked about it for a long time. She said she reckoned that our mayor was just asking us to love our neighbors like ourselves. And we did. We do. Besides, when the university went online, a lot of the kids went home. So even if we had opened again in April, business would have been real slow. But being closed for 6 months, that took a bite out of our savings. But a lot of our staff didn't have any savings. Like Lucille says, same river, in different boats. Well, my son-in-law, he teaches food and hospitality management. So he told Scotty we needed to apply for one of them paycheck protection loans. And we did, got one. So we were able to keep paying folks, even though we're told not to come in. Then in the fall, the university reopened. So we did too. Soon as the town was swarming with kids again, Scotty got COVID. He started wearing a mask before I did. But the day he got sick, he told me that when he and the preacher co-hosted the young men's prayer breakfast in the church basement, he took off his mask because nobody else was wearing one. Every single one of them got sick. But the college boys, they got better real quick. The preacher, he was in the hospital for months. They call him a long hauler now. He's home, but he's so tired he can't even leave his bed. With his lungs, Scotty didn't live long enough to go to the hospital. Happened so quick, Sarah didn't have a chance to say goodbye to her daddy. Betsy didn't have a chance to say bye to her papa. It's been hard on all of us. I told Lucille, sometimes I feel like I done fall all the way to the bottom of a great big old pothole. And it's real dark down in here. And she says she's real close by. And so Sarah and Bets. And the three of them, they're going to help me get on out. She's taken to praying with me on the sidewalk before we open up and after we close. She knows I hadn't been back to church since Scotty died. Every day I try to count my blessings. I had 45 good years with a man I love. Everybody doesn't get that. Lucille and Leonard, they didn't. Of course, we all had to quarantine, but nobody else at the cafe got sick. My son-in-law is helping us to figure out how to keep the place running. It's all takeout and sidewalk service now. Whole year long, I waited for the man I elected to do something about this virus. And he just kicked it to the States and then watched us all scramble like it was a college bowl game that's being played for his entertainment. And then he got the COVID. It one of his big dues. And he went to the hospital. And he got the rich man's treatment. Then he came back home and yanked his mask off his face. It wasn't a month after we buried Scotty. When he did that, I asked my Sarah to show me how to go online and change my party affiliation to independent.
So I'm going to go back and share the screen with the PowerPoint again and move it over here. So as a public speaking teacher, I taught my students to use logos, ethos, and pathos when they put their presentations together. Logos, of course, means rational development of your argument so that the listener can follow. Ethos is an attempt to establish yourself as an ethical narrator, a reliable narrator. And pathos is, of course, the opportunity to help your listeners feel empathy. And despite the fact that we celebrated an age of reason for centuries, the fact of the matter is if people don't care about what you're talking about, they will not be moved to take any action or to change their ideas. So in this case, I would love it if you would care to share anything about a sense of the impact that hearing a live or a virtual dramatic impact might have on you, or if you have some thoughts about the role of empathy in building community among individuals, particularly diverse ones. I'm happy to hear about that. I'm asking the question too that I know an answer to for myself. Can vulnerability be a strength in the pursuit of social justice? I think that may be the only strength that we bring to an opportunity to try and make change. So are there any issues in your community that could be addressed effectively by either a digital story or a virtual performance? If you'd like to put some thoughts in the chat, that would be terrific. Let's see. I'm looking down here. You could see the visuals this time. I'm praying.
Yes, we could. Don't worry. It was wonderful.
Okay.
Does anyone have anything they want to say live here?
There is.
There you go.
Please.
So the answer to the last question, what issues in your community might be addressed effectively? The community I come from India, and I think in India, the issues of minority are being highlighted at the moment and are highlighted in a very different manner. Those issues should be reflected by the minority themselves. So I think digital storytelling would definitely help them reflect their own stories instead of other people reflecting their stories.
Really a great point that having the authentic voice is so helpful. So I'm really glad that you have said that, and I'm hoping that some of the work we're seeing this weekend or work you're doing yourself might make that possible. Serena, thank you for your kind words, by the way. I'm going to move to the next piece because I want to stay as close on time as I can. So I do want to issue a trigger warning here. The final project in this presentation is set in a women's prison in Iowa in 1901. So it's an historical fiction set more than 100 years ago. In its entirety, it depicts an Iowa farm wife convicted for killing her abuser at the beginning of the 20th century. Her unseen audience in the piece is in the women's ward of the prison waiting room, and it's a female reporter who covered her trial. Now, I'd love for you to know that the fictional character of Minnie Wright is based on a real woman, Margaret Hossick, who was convicted and spent a year in Anamosa State Penitentiary for killing her abusive husband. Susan Glaspell, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, novelist, and short story writer who lived in the early part of the 20th century, covered the case for the Des Moines Daily News. So just wrap your head around having a female reporter in 1901 covering murder stories for a newspaper. As a result of a second trial, Hossick was in fact released from custody. Her first conviction was thrown out on a technicality. In this teaser, I am giving voice to Minnie Wright, who does not appear on stage in the play Trifles, which Susan Glaspell wrote based on her coverage of the murder trial, nor does she appear in the short story Glaspell, also published in 1917, a year after the play was produced. Both of those pieces handle this fictionalized version of the story, but Minnie Wright is already in prison in town, so you don't see her, you just hear her talked about, not unlike what you were just saying about how we represent others instead of hearing from them. So this particular piece allowed me to give voice to this character who had been unseen. Survivors in the audience may find the recorded expert a little triggering. Please feel free to turn the sound off during this short teaser. It's about 4.5 minutes. And I hope that if you need it, you will seek assistance following the presentation so that you are supported. This is an original monologue. I wrote it in 2012 while I was a late-breaking grad student in theater and performance studies. In 2021, I got a grant from the Orange County, North Carolina Arts Commission, and it funded my hosting of a series of online screenings of this piece in its entirety, and it's 38 minutes when it runs from start to finish. After the screening, there was always a virtual panel of domestic violence survivors, researchers, and direct support providers. And at each of these presentations, we offered a separate Zoom room with staff from a local shelter for audience members who needed support. In this proposal, I was co-sponsored by the Carolina Women's Center at UNC, by the Crisis Unit, which is the social workers who work to support the Chapel Hill Police Department, and the Compass Center, which is a shelter for abused women and their children. And by having those community partners to work with, I was able to reach out to offer this piece as staff training or community education. And the virtual program, we had 4 events, reached lawyers and interns in the North Carolina Department of Justice, domestic violence task force members, survivors, social workers, women's center staff, women's shelter volunteers, researchers, college students, scholars, the statewide network of the American Association of University Women, and the general public. In this snippet that I'm going to share with you in a moment, Minnie Wright is talking about her growing isolation and emotional abuse prior to the physical abuse that then follows. I'm going to stop this share and play that piece, and then we can chat about it as we end. Let's see now. Share screen. Here we go. Both Glaspell's play Trifles and the short story A Jury of Her Peers are available.
That first Sunday when John Wright came calling, I was almost 20 years old and practically a spinster. I thought him very handsome and able. He had come only a short time before from Illinois and already had a homestead with a house on it. He said straight away that he had come to church to find a good Christian woman to marry. And he saw me in the choir, wearing my Easter dress, the white one with the blue ribbons. He said he loved my singing. What a man tells a girl he's courting does not always endure. It was not until we dragged my hope chest over the threshold that I realized you couldn't see the road from the kitchen window. There was a chill in those rooms that had nothing to do with night coming on. In his haste, John Wright tore my new silk petticoat, one I had made myself and was very proud of. The doctor said that I might need months of bed rest to bring a baby to term. What farm wife can spend that long off her feet? Still, John Wright remained attentive, called me his little bird, said we'd try again, and we did. For a time, he chopped the kindling, he hauled the water. But we lost the babies anyway. So after that, we lay side by side without touching. And the space between us grew hard and silent. It was then that John Wright began to say that he couldn't stand any noise in the house, that he could not tolerate my singing, that I was not to speak unless I'd been spoken to, and he used the back of his hand to prove that he meant what he said. When we married, my husband said that we would be church-going people. But in time, he took to leaving me at the Ladies' Aid meeting to escort a young widow home to her stepson's house. One time I slipped out of the Ladies' Aid meeting to speak to the minister. I told him about the silence in our house, enforced by John's right hand, the lack of relations between us, and my husband's attentions to the widow. And he told me to keep my sorrows to myself and to speak no more against my husband. When I came out of the preacher's office, John Wright was standing in the hallway. The whole way home, he berated me for being alone with another man. When we drew into the yard, I told him he was slandering me. And given his attention to the widow, he was being a hypocrite as well. And he struck me with the butt of the bucky whip, and he pushed me out of the wagon. And that was the last time I asked my husband to take me to church.
Okay, we're going to go back to the, well, first I have to open it up, don't I? Nope. Let's try that again. We're almost done with the PowerPoint here. Okay. So this piece, which I created almost 10 years before Notes from a Pandemic Pothole, I was aware that I was using historical fiction and distance, as well as direct address, which is when an actor looks at you and tells you a story directly, like an aside in a Shakespeare play. It creates a great deal of immediacy. So the distance plus the immediacy were what I thought might make this a useful tool of community education on a contemporary issue. I am wondering what you have to say about direct address and its impact on the immediacy of an event, even one that is clearly an historical fiction, and wonder what resources might be available in your community for collaborative projects like this one. I needed to find those community partners to even put this forward to the Arts Commission, and I was really lucky that I had some contacts in the community already and was able to build on those to get the 3 sponsoring organizations, and then again through them was able to make my way to the North Carolina Department of Justice, etc. Please put in the chat anything that you might have to say about organizations in your community that might be interested in using, again, digital storytelling, virtual performance for collaborative projects like this one. Let me see. It doesn't want to move. Let's see if we can get it to move. Here we go.
Does anyone have anything to add in the room?
You may want to save the chat if there's something that's happened in the course of any of these presentations. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. And if you want to reach out to me for either a PDF of this slideshow or further information, you can Google me, Milbre Burch, and you'll find your way to Kind Crone Productions. So let me stop the share and we'll go back to being a group with the time that we have left, a few minutes, to see if there are any questions about this use of digital story and virtual performance in service to social justice.
Does anyone have any questions here in the room? Or any comments? I think that was a really fantastic presentation, Milbre. Really very provocative. I really liked the pothole, the use of the word. I think that was such a perfect word for how our lives turned out at that point, you know. And maybe at the time it didn't feel like a pothole, it maybe felt a little bit less temporary. But looking back, I think that's a brilliant way of describing it. And I think with that particular performance, you know, you were talking about empathy. I think that was something that with that viewpoint, that story, something that we could miss sometimes, you know, and we forget that everyone is affected, no matter their political leanings or, you know, where they're from. Everybody was affected in very similar ways. I think that was so effective. And then with the immediacy, absolutely, I would agree personally that it helps you, in my opinion, with the not just the immediacy, but the intimacy of a story, and then kind of opening it up for a dialogue, because you really feel like they're talking directly to you, that character, and then you might be more likely to share. But yeah, those were my thoughts. If anybody else wants to comment or anything, also I have the chat open if there's anyone wanting to put anything online.
I'm gonna put my website in there in case you are looking to reach me. There's a contact page there. So if that makes it helpful for us to stay in touch, I'm happy for that.
Wonderful.
Thank you all for your deep listening and kind attention for these projects, which I hope can perhaps be localized in some way, adapted, this kind of use of art in activism. I appreciate your being with me.
Thank you. Hope you can hear the clapping.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this wonderful conference.
Recording.